Hey everybody on YouTube, Karl Alexander here, and in today's video, I'm going to take a look at something I see very little about on YouTube, and that's benchmarking Fallout 4 ENBs. If you're unfamiliar with ENB, it's a third-party application developed by Boris Vorontsov that can modify render calls for certain games. These modifications can make the game have more advanced lighting and depth of field. If you've ever seen those crazy, high-quality modded Fallout or Skyrim screenshots, they are almost always using an ENB. So with better lighting, color, and depth of field, why doesn't everyone use an ENB preset? Well, ENBs can have a drastic effect on a game's performance. This performance hit has many factors, but usually it comes down to how many effects the particular ENB preset uses and how hard they hit the graphics card. So in today's video, I just want to see what kind of performance hit you can expect to take from 5 popular Fallout 4 ENB presets. For each test, I'm using my Intel i5-7600K overclocked to 4.8 GHz, 16 gigs of G.Skill DDR4 clocked to 2800 MHz, and the Gigabyte GTX 1070. For a more detailed list of all the parts I'm using, check out the description below. The ENB presets I picked were based on popularity and honestly ease of use. They consist of Vogue, Subtle, Pilgrim, Decent, and Olympus ENBs. Each of these will be linked in the description, but to be clear, this isn't a review or installation guide of these presets. It's simply a look into what kind of performance hit you'll take with each. Now, to present this in a real-world scenario, I did these tests at 1440p Ultra because I feel it gets closer to the GPU bottleneck that most users experience. Running these at 1080p on a 1070 wouldn't really give real-world numbers considering the extra GPU headroom. The idea here is to see how much the frame rate hit is when the GPU is the limiting factor. I did 3 test runs that I feel represent the sort of performance you'll get around different areas in Fallout 4. The first test is a run through Far Harbor to see how ENBs deal with fog and a small group of buildings and NPCs. The second test is just running through the wasteland towards Concord. And the last is a test through one of the less optimized areas in downtown Boston to give an idea how bad the frame rate can get using an ENB. Jumping right in with the Far Harbor test, we can see the range of average FPS loss is 11 FPS with the Subtle ENB, going up to 41 FPS with the Olympus ENB. This shows there is a wide variance between each, anywhere from 12 to 40%, at least in average frame rates. 1% and 0.1% lows scale at about the same rate as the averages, so while at times we are taking a significant FPS hit, stuttering doesn't become an issue until the Olympus ENB. It would be nice to see the average FPS maintain numbers closer to 60, but with some tweaking to the graphical settings, 60 is probably in reach for most of these presets. Moving along to the Wasteland test, we see a very similar set of results with almost identical scaling and average frame rates. However, with the lack of NPCs and complex geometry, our frame time consistency is much better, with almost all ENBs staying over 50 FPS in the lows. This further validates that frame times scale at about the same rate or a little less than average FPS for the most part. And last up, we've got the Boston test, where we run through a very poorly optimized area of downtown, and the results are certainly interesting. Unlike the other tests where low frame rates scaled close to the averages, the Boston test shows some sort of CPU limitation. Our base test with no ENB has bad frame times, which is to be expected. But the largest loss in 1% lows with the most performance-intensive ENB is only about 15%. So while ENBs tend to scale evenly in most areas, once you hit CPU hitches, the low frame rates mostly stay the same, which is actually a good thing. This means that even in the least optimized areas of the game, you can expect stutters to be about as bad as they always have been. Seems like an odd thing to be happy about, but in the world of ENBs, no change in FPS is a good thing. So conclusion time. ENBs are performance hogs. There is really no getting around it. You can use lighter ENBs to mitigate some of the drops, but then what's the point of an ENB that looks so close to stock? From my data, the lowest drop in average FPS was 11.7%, the highest was 49.4%, and the average was about 27%. So obviously the performance loss really does vary from preset to preset. Now this was a very specific set of hardware, and your results will vary, but I would still recommend going into ENBs expecting to lose up to 20% in FPS. If you can't make that sacrifice, you'll need to lower your graphics settings or resolution, because there is really no other way around it. And just as a parting thought, as far as my preference among the ENBs I tested, I'm enjoying the Decent ENB. I found this preset to be more pleasing than some of the heavy hitting ones, and it won't completely destroy your frame rate, which is why it was the featured preset in all the footage. Okay everybody, that's about it for this video. If you have any questions about ENBs or my testing, let me know in the comments. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, I'm sure you know what to do. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for more videos like this one in the future. Coming up soon, I'm going to have a video on Rocket League and possibly a video on my thoughts about Bethesda's Creation Club announcement. But you know, I'm never quite sure what's next. But make sure to check back for those. Follow me on Twitter, consider supporting me on Patreon, and as always, thanks for watching.